Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over the March 2025 Kill Team stats for Kill Team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link at Amway Games, an affiliate link and discount code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, once again, we're covering the stats this time for March 2025, as it's just gone by. And once again, we collect all our data from the Best Coast Pairings app. If you don't use Best Coast Pairings, please remember to submit it to us and we can use your data. We don't use leagues because no one uses leagues, and obviously online events. And remember, we rate draws as half a point, whereas, wins are 1 point and losses are 0. But all of this couldn't be done without Smiles Lies Gunfire, so thank you goes to him, because without this none would be possible. And I have his article, his website, down in the episode description below, where you can access the stats and play around with them all. They get updated after this video goes up, so you can toy around with them and see all the stats in more detail if you wish. But yeah, let's get on with it. So starting off for March, when it comes to the world map, America once again leading the way in events and players. 73 events, 11 GTs with 843 players. Then we have Spain with 30 events, 4 GTs and 401 players. It's interesting to see how that changed. Before, Spain used to lead the way, but now it definitely is America. America is the most popular place to play Kill Team, at least competitively. Then you've got the UK with 14 events and 247 players, then Poland with 7 and 122, and then Canada with 11 and 95. We also have Mexico and France, both with 89 players and a similar size number of events. Then Australia with 76 players, Russia with 69, Italy with 5, and Argentina with 46, and so on. So we've got a nice spread of countries. Even the Philippines, they had an event. Look, they got 20 players. That's awesome. New Zealand with 2 events and 19 players, which is awesome. We even got an event in China, Denmark, South Africa, and Kazakhstan. So it's pretty cool. We've got more places playing Kill Team around the world. So coming to the March win rates, you can see Sanctifiers at 88% with 17 games, 15 wins, and 2 losses, right? So you will see Sanctifiers and Goremongers here because, how do I describe this? So we've noticed a trend, like not just me and Smiles Lies Gunfire, but also I've been chatting with other stats people, like, Dakota, they do great stats. And basically, so we've noticed a trend. So effectively, all these games are from Spain for Sanctifiers and Goremongers. And you may be asking, but John, they're not legal yet. How are they running these events? Well, they go onto Best Coast Pair. Well, they made Best Coast Parents add them and then have used them immediately. And, ignoring the Sanctifier situation, it's just not a good look for Spain that they keep doing this. Other countries have done this as well, but we've noticed a trend specifically with Spain. But regardless of that, whatever that is, shows, unfortunately, even though Sanctifiers do have an 88.24% win rate, it's still way too early. This is from 2 events. And while I expect the Sanctifiers win rate to be probably above 60%, this isn't reliable, right? This is just an early taster of what's to come. This Kill Team is broken and does need some sort of emergency nerf at least, but we can't use this data. It's just hardly anything. Then we have Warp Coven with a 61% win rate with 157 games, which is a nice spread. They're still doing great. They were damn, we went from amazing to pretty damn good. Then you've got Brood Brothers with 130 games with a 58% win rate, which is really good, a great month for them. Chaos Cult with 121 games, a really nice average there with 58% as well for their win rate. Then we have Felgor Ravager with 56% win rate with 335 games, which is, I think, their highest played games yet, which is great. And then we have Legionary with 56% as well with 295 games. Then we do have Pathfinders with 17 games with 56%, so some hope there. Then we have Goremongers on 56% with 17 games as well. Oddly, the same number as the Sanctifiers. But as it comes to the Sanctifiers, it's too early to read anything from this. It's just funny numbers. We just included them because certain players around the world couldn't wait for the official release. Then closing up with the overperforming factions, we have Corsairs just on 56% with a win rate with 292 games. So damn, that's good. That's because if it's around 100 games, at least, that's a pretty good average for a faction. When is this level? Really nice. And then obviously we have the healthy range, which is 55% to 45%. So you got Wormblade, Void Dancer, Troop. So this is they've gone down quite a bit. Then this may likely be due to them losing their 1-inch climb, going down to a 2-inch climb. So maybe they're just okay now. Maybe Void Dancer, Troop are fine now. Nemesis Claw staying at 54%, Phobos 54%, Starstrider's doing pretty well at 54%. Blades of Cain 53, Inquisition 52, Hierotek 52, Galapox 50%, but only 23 games. Hand of the Archon 50% with 298 games. Plague Marines at 50%, well 49% with 451 games. The Mandrakes, Breachers both at 49, although Breachers only had 31 games. Vespid, their best month ever, 47% with 131 games. Then we have Ratlings at 47% with 200 games. Novitiates at 46 with 100. Then Angels of Death. This is probably one of the Angels of Death best months with 46% at 636 games, which is great. Like, they're way more popular now. Exaction Squad crashing down. Last month they were 60%. Now they've gone down to 46 with 132 games. So they've gone up in games and gone down in win rate. And then we have Halfkin dropping down to 46% with 213 games. And then we have Farstalker Kinpan just at 45% with 215 games. So now we go below 45%, which is Commandos at 43 with 217 games. Blooded at 43 with 95 games. Jaegers at 40% with 125 games. Scouts at 40% with 122 games. Aquilans at 39% with 200 games. Deathcore at 36% with 100. Kazakin down to 27. I think they've just hit 27.5. They're just stuck there with 40 games. And then Hunterclade down at 23% with 33 games. So here it is in like graph format. And look, if you would just ignore Sanctifiers, yeah, I mean, we still have a wider range of healthy teams, which is good. But the underperforming teams are still pretty much the same. Blooded have kind of had a bad month, but Jaegers, Scouts, Aquilans, Deathcore, Kazakin, and Hunterclade, they are persistent bad performers and really need some kind of uplift, especially as this is the second month after the balanced data slate. So a lot of these changes haven't really done much to these teams, especially with the overall nerf to elites. But then when we go to the overperforming side, Corsairs have done really well still. Ignore Goremongers. Pathfinders, we're just hoping, boys. We're just hoping. Legionary, still just slightly overperforming. Felgor, it's fine, they're goats, don't worry about it. And then Chaos Cult still doing really well. Slightly worse than last month, but still doing great. And then we have Brood Brothers, they're one of their best months yet. And then Warp Coven still doing amazingly well. Then we go into GT Plus. So these are events with 4 or more rounds and 16 or more players, which is generally what Games Workshop looks at when trying to balance the game, because it's technically the more competitive look at the game. So at 75% win rate is Goremongers and Sanctifiers. Goremongers with 4 games, they had 3 wins and a loss, and then Sanctifiers with 8 games, 6 wins and 2 losses. Just ignore it, right? Just look at them, and I just find it funny that people just couldn't wait for the official release. Then we've got Chaos Cult showing how they used to be with 65% win rate on 54 games, which is, you know, for GT Plus, we're looking at least 80 because there are less games and normal stats. So it's still a little bit under what we'd expect for games, but still a very good win rate. Brood Brothers with 63 games at a 61% win rate. Warp Coven with 80 games at a 61% win rate. Starstriders at 57 games with a 59% win rate. Felgor with a 57% win rate on 180 games. Blades of Cain on a 57% win rate on 100. And Novitiates at 56 on 50 games. And then we have Void Dancer Troop at 56% on 196 games. Then we have the normal healthy range. And then for underperforming factions, oddly, we have Hand of the Archon at 43% with 136 games. Commandos on 42% at 106 games. Breachers at 41%, going up at 22 games. Scout Squad unchanged at like 40% with 44 games. Ratlings dropping down to 39% with 108 games. Vespid at 38. Kazakin at 38. Aquilans at 37. Deathcore at 33. Hunterclade at 18% and Pathfinders at 12.5. 4 wins. Well, 4 games with 1 win. So this is what happens when you look at more the competitive events. It's fine. Just pray for Pathfinders. So here's the graph, so you can kind of see it. And once again, ignore Goremongers and Sanctifiers. And yeah, we still have once again a nice wider range of healthy factions. But as we go near the lower end, it kind of like slowly tapers down and then just drops off a cliff. So no real changes there, just interesting looks at the stats. Now we go on to podium data. So this tracks how many times a faction was like picked, how many times they won an event in terms of golds, how many like expected golds is basically from the stats how you predict how many times a faction will win the event. Then you've got how many times a faction came second or third with silver and bronzes, how many times a faction had at least a maximum 1 loss and at least 3 wins. So let's go through it. So we had Brood Brothers. They won 4 events, doing really well with 6 podiums. Then we had Void Dancer Troop. They won 3 events and came second. Well, they had 2 more podiums. Plague Marines won 3 events. Phobos won 2 events and podiumed 4 additional times. Chaos Cult won 2 events and also had like 3 more podiums. And then Corsairs, Blades of Cain, and Felgor all won 2 events. Nemesis Claw won 1 event but had 7 people who got silver and bronzes. Wreckers won an event and then had 5 people do this, similar to the Nemesis Claw with silver and bronzes. And then Angels of Death, they did won 1 event but podiumed 4 other times, as well as so did Mandrakes, Legionary, Warp Coven, Hierotech, and Novitiates. And, Halfkin, they podiumed twice. Jaegers managed to get 2 podiums. Hand of the Archon podium twice. So did Exaction Squad, Wormblade, and Farstalkers. And then Commandos, Starstriders, Inquisition, Blooded, and Sanctifiers all podiumed once. Oddly, Sanctifiers did not win their GT Long event, which is GT Plus, which is fine. But look, even Vespid had a few players, they had 2, managed to go at least 3 wins with 1 loss, which is really, really nice. So it kind of balances out the win rate a bit. As you can see, like Nemesis Claw have a huge amount of players that are going like maximum 1 loss, lots of wins, as well as so are Angels of Death. Felgor just doing really well in general, but Corsairs also have a large spike of players going like 1 loss maximum with at least 3 wins, as do Void Dancers. So while it's not like fully correlating with their win rates, all these factions are doing actually really well when it comes to podium and winning events, especially when it comes to the GT Plus format. So then we go to GT Long. This is for events with 6 or more rounds and 30 more players. And I believe we had like at least 4 or 5 GT Long events this month, which is really, really good, including Adepticon. So starting off with Chaos Cult, they played 7 games, won 7 games, and have a 100% win rate. It's fine. Brood Brothers played 27 games and have a 70% win rate. Starstriders with 45 games have a 61% win rate. Void Dancer Troop with 96 games have a 60% win rate. Felgor with 97 games have a 59% win rate. Warp Coven with 46 games have 59%. Corsairs with 65 games have a 56% win rate. And then going outside of the healthy range for underperforming factions, Wormblade just set at 45, Hierotech at 45 as well, and then Legionary at 44 with 53 games, Commando at 43 with 44, Hand of the Archon 43 with 78 games, Blooded 42% with 12 games, Jaegers 42% with 24 games, Aquilans at 41% with 37 games, Inquisition dropping down to 39% with 18 games, Rattlings on 36% at 39 games, Vespid at 20% on 15 games, and Deathcore bringing it home, the 0% win rate over 11 games. 11 games, no wins. We got it. We got the 0% win rate back. And here it is in graph format. So just GT Long is always going to be bizarre, right? Because there's less games. But this is like the most populated GT Long we've had in a while. And we've still got a nice spread, mostly. It's just Chaos Cult and Brood Brothers kind of going crazy. And then Vespid and Deathcore taking it home for the losers, which is unfortunate. Like, you don't really want it to see it. And as I said, well, as I should have said, throughout the graphs, the cooler the number, like the cooler the color, the less players. So the brighter it is, the more players. Look at Angels of Death. There's so many Angels of Death player. They're shining like a lighthouse, a beacon of player base. So then going on to the podium data, here's the table showing you all the podium numbers for GT Long. And then here is the graph. So as we can see, Brood Brothers played in won 2 GT Long events and podiumed 3 times. Well, they went 3-1 at 3 times. Nemesis Claw, once again, they won 1 event, but had a huge number of players going maximum 1 loss, 3 wins. Then you had Felgor, Void Dancers, Chaos Cult, and Novitiates all win a GT Long event. And then for Angels of Death, Phobos, Hand of the Archon, and Mandrakes, they all podiumed twice. With Star Striders, Wreckers, Halfkin, Exaction Squad, Hierotic, and Jaegers all podiuming once. Now, Angels of Death did the highest number of players with maximum 1 loss and at least 3 wins, then followed by Nemesis Claw, then Corsairs. So you've got an interesting spread there. Obviously, it makes sense for Angels of Death because there's so damn many of them, but it's a nice look at the stats either way. So now we look at the quarterly data. So this is the data after the balanced data slate in January, covering the dates of February and March. So this is the data Games Workshop is likely going to use, not our data, but just the data in general, to balance the game. So overall, here are the table quarters so far. So Sanctifiers and Goremongers, this is going off of GT Plus, by the way, which is why there's less games. So ignoring Sanctifiers and Goremongers, both on 75%. Over 82 games, we have Brood Brothers on 63%. Chaos Cult with 63 games on 61%. Novitiates on 75 games on 58. Warp Coven with 125 games on 57. Wormblade at 57 on 83 games. Felgor with 271 games on 56%. Void Dancer Troop on 55 with 275 games. Then going outside of the healthy range because everything in the green is fine. Blooded 45%, so it's just fine along with Ratlings and Commandos. So all 3 of those factions just curtailing in the healthy range. Then with 128 games, we have Aquilans with 38%, Vespid with 77 games on 37%, Scouts with 61 games on 37%, Gelapox with 3 games, 33%, Deathcore 33% on 49 games, Kazakin with 27% on 22 games, Hunterclade on 27% with 43 games, and Pathfinders with 15 games, 17%. So here's the graph. Once again, ignore Sanctifiers and Goremongers. They're just there because they are. We still overall have a much wider healthy range than we have had before the balanced data slate. The only sad thing is for underperforming factions, the underperforming factions are just performing worse than they did actually under the prior balanced data slate. Like So you have Aquilans, Vespid, Scouts, Gelapox, Deathcore, Kazakin, Hunterclade, and Pathfinders all doing really badly, which is a shame to see. It definitely need huge buffs and help just to get them to healthy ranges. Now, I'm not saying they need to be over buffed, but they need a lot of help considering some of these has already been buffed. And then going to the overperforming side, we actually don't have too many overperforming factions this time. It's basically just Felgor, Warp Coven, Novitiates, Chaos Cult, Brood Brothers. So Brood Brothers, I wouldn't take that too seriously. I think Brood Brothers are still fine where they are. Chaos Cult have been a problem. They were really bad 2 months ago in February, and then in March they were still doing really, really well, actually going up in players and coming down in win rate. So they're still quite over buff from where they were. Novitiates, I think, are fine where they are, but it's an interesting look. Just ignore Sanctifiers and Goremongers. Then we have the overall quarter data for podiums. So this is all the podiums numbers here, so you can look at them now. And then from the graph, we've got scaled podiums. So it's looking at all the top 16s, top 3s, and averaging out. So if you were trying to go for an event and go what faction is going to be the most successful for me? So if you're looking at either podiuming an event or getting a top 3 in the top 16, Nemesis Claw win that with basically the biggest average at 18. Then it's Felgor. Even though their win rate has just been okay, they've won a ton of events and podiums several times. So podium, Felgor, a great choice. So are Angels of Death. Oddly, Wreckers are just really random, but if you roll well, Wreckers are great. And then we still have Void Dancer Troop, Corsairs, both doing really well. Plague Marine's a good solid pick, as well as Phobos. Blades of Cain, and then, you've got the orange line there showing below average. And then continuing above average, we have Mandrakes, Brood Brothers, Halfkin. Halfkin are doing really well at the moment. Legionary, and then Warp Coven, with Wormblade just slightly overperforming. Generally, oddly, despite Chaos Cult's high number of faction wins and win rates, they're not likely for you to podium as much, but that's because they don't have as many games. But it's just an interesting look nonetheless. And then finally, we have a list of all events used. So you can see we had Adepticon, the Goonhammer Open UK run by myself, the UKTC in Manchester, and so many more. So just, showing all these events that happened. So for the March stats overview, this is probably, unfortunately, the last month of stability we will have for a while, because you've already seen them, but Sanctifiers and Goremongers are coming. If you're in Spain, they're already there. You guys couldn't wait. You were just like, let's go. Who cares about, I don't know how they got them early, but they busted those out, those 4 rosters. But otherwise, ignoring those 2, because they're going to be a problem for the future. It's just a shame, because oddly looking at this map, I go it's actually pretty good. We still have the same number of factions underperforming. So as I've covered them before, Aquilans, Scouts, Deathcore, Hunter Clade, Vespid, Pathfinders. Those factions are continually to underperform, which is just sad. They really need some help. And overperforming factions have narrowed down a bit. You've got a oddly fluctuating thing between Corsairs, Void Dancer Troop. Brood Brothers had a great quarter this time. Nemesis Claw, despite not being able to win as many events, are a really successful podiuming team. And then Angels of Death show that despite their lower win rate, they have such a huge player base that they're still having tons of podiums and actually event wins. So they're actually becoming a really successful faction. And then Chaos Cult are still doing really, really well. Definitely riding over the buffs they've gotten. And then you had Novitiates picking up after their big nerf where they dropped off and now have started picking up again. So it's just a shame looking at this meta going oh, we were in a really nice spot and now it's just gonna go bad. But it's even Hand of the Archon didn't have the best of months. While they were fine overall, they actually started underperforming when they went to longer, more competitive events. But they did have more players, so more players hopping on, which is an interesting look. And then Felgor continuing their dominance. They have way more players than they have in ages, and they have a still really high win rate, winning lots of events. They won Adepticon. Shane went undefeated 7 times. He won 7 games in a row at Adepticon with Felgor from Command Point, so he did an amazing job there. But Felgor showed their consistency as a really good and powerful faction just because of how good their Frenzy rule is, along with their other close combat ability buffs, being a close combat kill team. So it's going to be interesting to see how this meta shakes out. Obviously, we should be getting a balanced data slate, hopefully by the end of April. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If they drop it at the end of April, we'll still have useful April data. We'll have the first full months of Chaos Cult and Goremongers and Sanctifiers, so we can build off of that. And who knows, if we get Typhon early, maybe it could come in April, but it probably won't be included for the stats unless you're in Spain. But it'd be interesting to see. We still have this nice spread of results, so it's still nice to see. At the moment, kill teams in a pretty healthy stage. Sure, we need some minor tweaks here and there. The only egregious things I can think of which weren't really shown in the stats kind of come with the Halfkin Salvager Alpha Strike, a few and technically with the Corsair Void Scar, how their little tricks, namely the Shade Runner through Galadark. But those are more faction specific nerfs. But when you look at the stats, generally we're quite healthy meta. We have even the underperforming factions. A lot of them are doing quite well, and when it comes to podiuming or going at least 3 wins with maximum 1 loss. Because even when we looked at GT Plus, we had 2 Jaeger players podium. So even though that faction is doing quite bad, they still have players doing well. Even Vespid, they had 2 players podium, despite how really bad Vespids are. So it's not even if you're bringing in a really bad faction, it's not like it's going to be impossible for you to do well. Sure, you may be unlikely to win an event, but it doesn't stop you from podiuming or placing really highly, which is great to see. But thanks goes again to Smiles Lies Gunfire. He's the one who helped collate all this and, make all these fancy graphics, which is really nice. And he can find his website down in the episode description below, which has all the stats. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you find it useful and helpful? Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate code at Emma Games, an affiliate code Discord code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'm just going to quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts with the crit, I have Tom, Supercow, Sam, Nick, Mercenary Q, Mr. Meatwad, Lucas, Jeremiah, Graham, Fangzu Draken, Dave Meatswell, Dan, Ted Goldens, Chris, and Morpheum. And then for my vets with the crit, I have Mark. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, now I'm going to post this up. I'm enjoying one last event. I'm at the Sheffield GT this weekend, so I'm probably running my Hand of the Archon because it's the last time I can enjoy running my Hand of the Archon before the meta turns horrible. But it's interesting seeing how the stats evolved. I'm not looking forward to April, but April is a future problem for future me. So yeah, you know what? No matter what the stats say, there's always a chance that you can win as long as you can roll a crit.